Hi everybody, welcome back to Clay Life Studios. Today's lesson is going to be for beginners on centering. If you're advanced and you haven't seen me center before, this is still a great one to watch. First things first, throw your clay on nice and hard onto the bat, to the wheel, whatever you're using. Try to hit the middle, but if you don't, you can, let's say I'm way off, you can just stop and shove it towards the middle if you need to get close. If you're nice and close, it helps with the centering. Make sure that the clay is patted into a nice round shape too. That's really going to help. You don't want these corners. That way when your hand hits the clay, it doesn't get thrown off by a corner and fall back in. The next thing, and this is really, really important, check your wheel's direction. A lot of wheels will either go counterclockwise or clockwise. If you're right-handed, we want it going counterclockwise. If you're a lefty, obviously reverse it. Okay, so here we go. You can leave your foot on the pedal if you want, or you can take it off. I move my pedal to the left side, and I'll talk more about why I like it there in other videos coming up. Okay, so I've thrown mine off the center pretty far. You can see that bounce. Now you can fix yours just by pushing it a little bit closer, but I'm going to leave it way off just to kind of exaggerate the difficulty here a little bit. The key, lots of water, left elbow. Instead of sitting with your elbows high, I always think about my left elbow needing to be very stable. Think of it this way. The wheel generates lots of energy just by its movement. Lots of power here in the clay. If I'm steady, this clay will be forced to move towards the middle. It'll center. So instead of sitting like this, if I'm going to cone, I'm going to reverse. I'm going to rotate to this position. So here's what it looks like. I'm not going to sit here, which requires arms and chest muscles to try to get this. Now you might be strong enough to do it, but you might just get thrown around. So instead of sitting here, I'm going to bring my elbow and I'm going to put it right into my pelvis, tight back into my pelvis. And then I'm going to push forward with my hips a little bit to be tight on the clay. So it looks like this. Right hand comes around for support, but it does very little. It's just giving a little bit of backward pull. I want all of my concentration to be on this elbow being locked in and getting into the clay a little bit. So look at this, see what happens. Immediately it improves. I didn't have to use a lot of energy from my body trying to squeeze and control and be powerful. I simply had to get into the clay because now it's my mass that's pushing onto this clay. It's not my arms. It's not my strength from my arms and my chest and my back. This little bit that pans out a little bit, just drag it off. Come around, let's do it again. I get in, but this time I'm going to scoop just a little bit and I'm going to lift. And look what happens. I'm not putting much pressure with the top part of my hand. I'm putting a lot of pressure down here in this sort of motion, almost like I'm lifting. And then once I come up a little bit, I start to flatten it out a little bit. My pressure shifts to the top part of the hand so that we create this point. Now to bring this back down, I simply need to push it forward. I'm going to keep my fingers out of the way so you can see, but typically I would just leave my hands on there, my fingers on there, and I would just push it forward. So let's try this again. Take away that extra clay, get rid of it. If your hands get messy, scrape them off on your bucket. Okay, here we go. Again, I'm not here. Rotate back, lock in. You're going to need to move. You know, I see a lot of really static sitting potters, particularly when they're just beginning. If you watch somebody that throws really well, you're going to notice a lot of shifting. They're going to move their legs out and back in. They're going to adjust and then get in and then be steady. Here we go. So this is called coning. I just bring it up and I tip it forward. And by tipping it forward, it falls back down. Good. And again. I close my eyes because I don't need to see what's going on. I need to feel what's happening. I want to feel if my elbow is getting loose, if it starts bouncing it around back here, if it starts moving, then I'm not locked in very well. I'm not using my body to push on it. It's pulling away from my body, and now it's getting pushed around by this mass. So that's what I concentrate on. I just bring it up, then I tip it forward, and it comes back down. Okay, so that's using coning. Look how I'm shifting my body off to my right. You can move around to get that pressure from your body, that push from your body if you need to. And depending on the amount of clay, sometimes I really get pretty far off to the right to get the push that I want. With small amounts of clay, you're not going to have to do too much movement. Now, once you've coned up and down a few times, you can shift to different hand positioning. We're still going to stay locked in, but this time, our elbow locked in, but this time we're going to use the meaty part of your left hand, pushing at 7 o'clock. And watch what happens when I push in. It just lifts immediately, it comes up. Now I'm going to use my right hand. I'm going to grab the thumb of that left hand. I'm going to put my pinky and make sure it crosses the middle of the top. And I'm going to push down. I keep stopping and adding water. Lock in my left elbow, lean forward. Look what happens. No pressure on top, just comes up. And now I push it back down. Now I can keep my hands connected. I can keep the top hand touching the clay at all times. I just move it up and down a couple times. I start with these dramatic motions, go a little higher, come down a little bit farther, do that a few times, and then I just kind of settle in these smaller motions. And there you go. Now, can you just center doing the second half of that I did? You can. You don't have to cone. In fact, sometimes, to be honest, with large amounts of clay, I don't cone. Or I'll do a very simplified version of it. I'm not going to try to bring it way up and bring it way down. Instead, I focus more on that second half that you just saw, where I've locked the elbow in, I lean in, and then I push it down. I lean in, and I push it down. Lean in, and I push it down. Then I come off very slow. Anytime your hands are quick, the clay will get off. So if I'm pushing on, if I have pressure on the clay, and I suddenly release, it's always going to get loose. I can straighten it back out by getting that pressure back on. But again, if I come off quickly, bonk, 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 bonk. So instead, once I push down here, I melt away and just come off really, really slow. And that, my friends, is centering. I hope that was helpful. Have a good day.